Hello again everyone, Saka here, and welcome to Baldur's Gate 3 Character Creator, and today we're going to look at the differences between the 5th edition Character Creator in Dungeons & Dragons and the Character Creator here in Baldur's Gate 3. So if you have a 5th edition character that you wanted to play in Baldur's Gate 3 or vice versa, this is what you'll have to sort of keep in mind as you move from platform to platform. The first screen you get to is your origin screen, and you get to select your background. So let's see what the backgrounds have in store. First is the Acolyte, and according to the 5th edition handbook, you do indeed get your insight and religion proficiency, so that checks out thus far. You would also get to choose 2 languages of your choice, but language doesn't seem to be implemented in this game really that I've seen. Everyone pretty well speaks Common, so you don't get your 2 extra languages. And also the little pack that comes with you, 15 gold, the holy symbol and all that, that's just for flavor for the tabletop game, and you'll have to do everything from scratch in Baldur's Gate 3. The next background is Charlatan, and indeed that is also in 5th edition, and indeed you do get your Deception and Sleight of Hand proficiencies, just like the Charlatan in 5e. One thing you get as a Charlatan in the 5th edition handbook, however, is a Disguise Kit and proficiency with Disguise Kits. I haven't seen any Disguise Kits, per se, in Baldur's Gate 3. Not to say they're not in here or will be in here, but that would be interesting if the Charlatan background does give you a Disguise Kit going forward. The next background is Criminal, and just like the 5th edition, you get your Deception and Stealth proficiency bonuses. You also get a dark piece of clothing for the Criminal with like a hood. That way you can sort of blend into the shadows if you were the roguey, stealthy type character, but at least these skill proficiencies are there. As far as your Entertainer background is concerned, you do get your Acrobatics and Performance proficiencies. Also, one perk of the Entertainer is you're able to play music in order to stay the night from place to place. As far as inns and taverns and whatnot goes, I don't know if they will put those into the ultimate Baldur's Gate 3 game, but that would be cool if you could sort of waive your fee for staying the night as long as you play a little something something in the tavern to earn your keep. So Entertainer background proficiencies are there. Next background is indeed here the Folk Hero with your Animal Handling proficiency and your Survival proficiency. In the tabletop game, you get proficiency in Artisans, tools, gem making, jewelry making, that sort of thing. Don't know if Baldur's Gate 3 is going to have such things as these, but the Folk Hero, at least in the tabletop version, gets Artisan tool proficiency. So as you go through your backgrounds and you're going alphabetical and you're like, okay, Guild Artisan, next should be Hermit. No, it's actually Noble. Hermit is after. But you do get your medicine and religion proficiency, but it's a little bit out of order, early access and all that good junk. But yeah, both your Noble and Hermit backgrounds are in here, both with your history and persuasion for the Noble. It'd be cool if you got your signet ring and was recognized in conversations as a Noble in your past, maybe let into some keeps that other players would have to sneak into or persuade to get around. That would be pretty cool. And your Hermit does indeed come with your medicine and religion proficiencies. Next up is your Outlander background with your Athletics and Survival proficiency, just like 5e. Now, the Outlander has proficiency in musical instruments. I don't know if Baldur's Gate 3 is going to have instruments, but the Outlander, at least in the tabletop version, is proficient in one type of musical instrument. So the Sage has the Arcana and History proficiencies, just like 5e, and just like the other background before with the language proficiencies, the Sage in the tabletop version gives you 2 language proficiencies other than Common. No such choice here, but early access and all that good stuff. The Sailor has Athletics and Perception, also proficiency in naval-based ships, and they can basically hire a little boat by talking to the right folks. So if there are any port towns in Baldur's Gate 3 and you need a boat to get somewhere, perhaps the Sailor can get that done right away. It'll be interesting if they incorporate that into the base game. So the Soldier background with their Athletics and Intimidation proficiencies, the Soldier in the tabletop game will have attained a rank in the military, and other military folks will recognize them as such, so that would be a cool opportunity for a dialogue check in the Baldur's Gate 3 game, where you run into, say, a captain of the guard or something like that, and if you have the soldier background, they would recognize you as a fellow captain or a foot soldier. Either way. And the soldier also has proficiency in land vehicles. Don't know if there will be any vehicles in Baldur's Gate 3, but that remains to be seen. So your urchin here, just like Aladdin, Riffraff, Street Rat, has the sleight of hand proficiency and the stealth proficiency. In the tabletop game, the urchin is able to get through cities much faster. You don't have to spend as much time traveling, as the urchin will know the back alleys. Also, you're proficient in thieves' tools, so a pretty good background for a rogue. So we'll go alphabetically through the races here, and first off is the Dwarf, and we have the sub-races of Gold Dwarf and Shield Dwarf. Basic Dwarven features, Constitution +2, that is indeed included, as well as your dark vision. You can see in the dark within 40 feet. The 5e version, though, gives you dark vision up to 60 feet. Dwarven resilience is exactly as it is on the box. You have advantage on saving throws against poison, and you have resistance against poison damage, basically taking only half damage against poison. These fit into your Dwarven combat training, so indeed, you do get your battle axe, hand axe, light hammer, and war hammer proficiencies. So your Hill Dwarf is renamed Gold Dwarf in Baldur's Gate 3. They come with the Wisdom +1 and the Dwarven Toughness. Hit point max increases by 1, and it increases by 1 again every time you gain a level. So if you're thinking, hey, where's my Hill Dwarf? It's actually the Gold Dwarf. Which means your Shield Dwarf is your Mountain Dwarf, and just like 5e, you get your Strength +2, your Light Armor, and Medium Armor proficiencies. So aside from the naming of the Gold and the Shield Dwarf from the Hill and the Mountain Dwarf, they are on paper exactly the same, so your 5e Dwarf can fit right into Baldur's Gate 3. Moving on alphabetically to the Elf, we have the High Elf, we have the Wood Elf, and race features base elf, dexterity +2, just like 5e, and dark vision. This dark vision is 40 feet, aside from the 60 feet of the tabletop game, but so far so good. Elves come with keen senses. As we see here, you have proficiency in perception. So that is just like the 5e version as well. Perception skill, proficiency. And just like the tabletop version, the Fey Ancestry gives you advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and you cannot be magically put to sleep. Now, one thing that I saw in cutscenes is the trance. It's not listed here on the race features in the 5e version. You don't actually sleep. You meditate for 4 hours rather than sleeping for 8. In Baldur's Gate 3, you will see your elf just sort of sit there on their sleeping bag meditating. I haven't seen anything about sleeping a full 8 hours or exhaustion, points of exhaustion, anything like that. But it's cool that they acknowledge, at least in the sleeping cutscenes, that your elves just go into a trance when they sleep. So High Elf is named exactly as it is in Baldur's Gate 3 compared to the 5th edition. You get your Intelligence +1. One thing that isn't listed is your longsword, short sword, longbow, and shortbow proficiency under the High Elf. One reason that could be is the Wood Elf is also proficient in longsword, short sword, longbow, and shortbow, so it's more of a racial feature rather than a sub-race trait. So I can see why they didn't list it down here, but both your High Elf and Wood Elf are proficient in those 4 weapons. And just like the 5th edition, you get to choose a cantrip from the Wizard spell list. 13 different cantrips to choose from as a High Elf: Acid Splash, Blade Ward, Chill Touch, Dancing Lights, Firebolt, Friends, Light, Mage Hand, Minor Illusion, Poison Spray, Ray of Frost, Shocking Grasp, and True Strike. So that is comparable to your 5th edition. And just like 5th edition, we have our Wood Elf here with our Wisdom +1. What makes them different than the High Elf? First of all, your fleet of foot. Base walking speed 35 feet. You get an extra 5 feet of movement each turn. And this is where a little bit of the difference comes in between 5e and Baldur's Gate. So Mask of the Wild in the tabletop version means you can try to hide in any naturally occurring phenomenon. Fog, rain, sleet, hail, anything like that. You can sort of blend in. Gameplay wise here, you just gain proficiency in stealth. So, you know, that works out, but in Baldur's Gate, there are more times where you are not in natural phenomenon, but this proficiency in stealth seems a little overkill compared to the 5th edition tabletop version where Mask of the Wild works in natural phenomenon. And we move on to the Drow. Now this is a big difference between the 5th edition. 5th edition incorporates the Drow as a sub-race of elf. Baldur's Gate 3 makes Drow a completely separate race. In the base, your charisma score is boosted by 1, but your dexterity is not boosted by 2, which is interesting indeed. Superior dark vision in Baldur's Gate 3 is 80 feet, where in the tabletop version it is 120 feet. And one thing that would absolutely kill a playthrough gameplay-wise in Baldur's Gate 3 if you played a Drow is their sunlight sensitivity in the 5th edition handbook. Basically, any attack that you make is at disadvantage in the sunlight, and any perception check that you make in sunlight is at disadvantage as well. Basically, if you chose to play a Drow in Baldur's Gate 3, you'd be pretty screwed. Every single attack you would be making outside would be at disadvantage. So gameplay-wise, I could definitely see why they pulled that sunlight sensitivity. So this cantrip comes from Drow magic. You get the Dancing Lights cantrip. At level 3, you get Fairy Fire, and at level 5, you get Darkness. I haven't played a Drow up through level 5, so I don't know if this cantrip actually changes, but this is a once-use rechargeable with a long rest cantrip. So with the game reading this as a cantrip, I wonder if you could use Dancing Lights more than once, whereas the tabletop version, you could use it once per day. With this being just a regular old bonus action, you might be able to spam Dancing Lights where you wouldn't be able to in the tabletop game. I haven't played a Drow, like I said, so I don't know. If you've played a Drow, comment below. Can you just spam the crap out of these Drow magic cantrips? Next up, alphabetically, we have our Halfling, and just like 5e, we have our Lightfoot Halfling, but instead of a Stout Halfling, we have a Strong Heart Halfling. Base features for Halfling's Dexterity +2 is involved and lucky, so when you roll a 1 for an attack, ability check, or saving throw, you can re-roll, so very good to have the lucky trait from being a Halfling for sure. One thing that's not listed here in the Halfling race features is the Brave trait. Basically, the Halflings have advantage on being frightened. Now, since this isn't in here, I don't know if that's just sort of baked in or if they chose not to have advantage on frightened, but on the tabletop version, your Halflings will be brave. And our Halfling nimbleness is not listed either. The ability to move through a space of a creature one size bigger than you. So you can move through a large creature, basically just straight through them in the tabletop version. But our Halfling here, I don't know if they would have to path around gameplay-wise. Our Lightfoot Halfling does carry over the +1 charisma and naturally stealthy, and it works basically the same way as the Wood Elf, where normally they would be able to hide behind something bigger than them, but this game just gives you proficiency in your stealth checks. So there'll be more times when you're stealthing not behind something, and you would be getting proficiency in that. In the tabletop game, you would have to actually get behind something bigger than you to get that naturally stealthy trait. But the Strong Heart Halfling / Stout Halfling in 5th edition does get their +1 Constitution and the Strong Heart Resilience or Stout Resilience, the advantage on saving throws against poison and resistance to poison damage. Next up alphabetically is your classic human, and just like 5th edition, the base human gets +1 to everything, and sort of jack of all trades, master of none. In the 5th edition handbook, however, there is a human variant where you get to improve 2 of these traits by 1, and you get to pick a feat. So I don't know if that's going to be coming in the base game or if that would just be too OP in Baldur's Gate 3, but your human just comes with all of your stats +1. Next up on the list that I am disheartened to see, but will be in the final game, the Dragonborn. Can't wait to see how they represent the Dragonborn race in Baldur's Gate. After the Dragonborn, the Gnome will also be included, however, it is not in early access at this time. That'll be interesting as well. So one thing that Baldur's Gate 3 did that the player's handbook did not do was elaborate on what type of half-elf you are. You could be a high half-elf, wood half-elf, and a drow half-elf, and get the little race feature that came with it, whether it be your high elf cantrip, your wood elf Mask of the Wild, or your drow cantrip. That's pretty cool. Base stats though, every half elf gets charisma +2, and you can choose 2 other abilities to raise by 1, just like the player's handbook. And just like 5th edition, Dark Vision is available. However, this Dark Vision is 40 feet, player's handbook is 60. And Fey Ancestry, you have advantage on saving throws against being charmed, and magic can't put you to sleep. The next race that is in the player's handbook but not here just yet is the Half-Orc. So another interesting race to choose from once the game actually comes out. And that brings us lastly to the Tiefling in the 5th edition base player's handbook, and one thing Baldur's Gate did was include Asmodeus Tiefling and the Mephistopheles Tiefling. That changes the little subrace traits down here. Tieflings get Dark Vision, once again, the 40 versus the 60, and the Hellish Resistance. Your blood protects you from flame, and you have resistance of fire and take half damage. Both Tieflings will get Thaumaturgy right out of the gate. In level 3, they will get the cantrip Hellish Rebuke, and on level 5, they will get Darkness. So much like the Drow magic, the Tiefling's cantrip will sort of grow with them. So your Asmodeus Tiefling is just like the 5th edition player's handbook, your +2 charisma, +1 intelligence, and thaumaturgy cantrip. Your Mephistopheles Tiefling will get those same +2 and 1, but you get the mage hand cantrip. I don't know if this grows with this particular Tiefling or not. And your Zariel Tiefling gets +2 charisma, +1 strength, rather than intelligence. So if you wanted to be a little bit of a fighter, you could take the Zariel Tiefling rather than the Asmodeus Tiefling. One thing that we also did not cover in the races was the Githyanki, because they're not in the 5th edition base, but in strength +2, intelligence +1, light and medium armor, lots of sword proficiencies, and their speed is 30. With a mage hand Githyanki psionic cantrip, so not bad at all. Now we move on to classes, and the first class in the player's handbook is Barbarian. That will be included in the final game, but not in early access at this point. The next class after Barbarian is Bard, once again in the final game, but not in early access. So the first class that is included in the early access and player's handbook is your Cleric. First of all, your hit dice is 1d8. As we can see, we have 9 hit points here because our constitution is a +1 there. So 8 + 1 = 9, so your hit dice checks out for your Cleric. As far as your armor proficiencies go, you have light armor, medium armor, and shield proficiencies just like 5e. Weapons, simple weapon. Your 2 saving throws are indeed Wisdom and Charisma, both in Baldur's Gate 3 and 5e. The Cleric can choose 2 skills from History, Insight, Medicine, Persuasion, and Religion. Just like 5e, you get to pick 3 cantrips from the Cleric spell list. There are 4 available: Guidance, Light, Resistance, and Sacred Flame. You get to choose 3. As far as your subclasses go, you have your Life, your Light, and your Trickery domains in Baldur's Gate 3 as of now. So at this point, there is no War, there is no Tempest, and there is no Nature domain. As far as your Life domain Cleric, here are your first level spells in Bless and Cure Wounds. For your Light domain Cleric, there are your Burning Hands and Fairy Fire. And your Trickery domain, you get your Charm Person and your Disguise Self, all included in Baldur's Gate 3. Alphabetically, the next class would be Druid. You run into some Druids in Baldur's Gate 3, but you cannot play as them just yet. Next up, Fighter-Man. Yep, fighters in here with their 1d10 hit dice, and we get the +2 from our 14 constitution. These ability scores sort of moved around a bit, so we can see that indeed the d10 is our hit dice for the fighter. Our proficiencies, all armor, which they list here as light, medium, and heavy, and our shield proficiencies are there too. Weapons are indeed simple and martial weapon proficiencies, and we've got both of our saving throws, our strength and constitution. So fighter is pretty well taken care of, and there is our second win bonus action. So no fighting style choices here right off the bat as a level 1 fighter. I know at second level you do indeed get your action surge, and at level 3 I'm not sure if you could pick your fighter archetype, but I believe you can. The next class up for bids is Monk in the player's handbook. No Monk here. We'll have to wait for Pop to make her appearance. As well as Lawful Stupid the Paladin is not here in early access just yet, so we'll have to wait for Deus Vult. But the Ranger is accounted for, and the 1d10 hit dice, and we have 11 hit points because of our extra +1 in our constitution, so Ranger is here with their d10 hit dice. Rangers are indeed proficient in light, medium armor, and shields, just like 5e, as well as both weapon types, your simple and martial weapon. You can pick up any weapon you want and use it well. As far as skills go, the Ranger in 5th edition can choose from 3 of animal handling, athletics, insight, investigation, nature, perception, stealth, and survival. And our Ranger can indeed choose from 3 from animal handling, athletics, insight, investigation, nature, perception, stealth, and survival. So you can take any one of these 3, balance that with your background, you'll have some pretty good proficiencies there. Instead of naming a humanoid type of favorite enemy, we have different categories here. The Bounty Hunter gives us proficiency in investigation, and creatures you restrain have a harder time escaping. You specialize in hunting creatures from other planes of existence, proficiency in Arcana, and can cast protection from evil and good. Mage Breaker. You have a history of battling spellcasters, so you get proficiency with Arcana and True Strike, which gives you advantage on attack rolls. Wisdom is your spellcasting ability. You also have your Ranger Knight, gain proficiency with history and heavy armor. That's interesting. And a Sanctified Stalker. You swore to hunt the enemies of a holy or druidic order, gain proficiency in religion, and the Sacred Flame cantrip. So some extra cantrips given to you depending on your favorite enemy, instead of just declaring, I am an orc hunter, I am a goblin hunter. No, you've got some different categories here for your favorite enemy. Same thing for Natural Explorer. You can choose Beast Tamer, have a cultivated strong bond with animals, and we can cast Find Familiar. Urban Tracker, we gain proficiency with Disguise, Kit, and Thieves Tools. The Cold, so cold resistance, fire resistance, poison resistance. So that is an interesting way to do Natural Explorer, since they don't have to factor in travel time or advantage on tracking, that sort of thing. So an interesting way that Baldur's Gate 3 changed up the Ranger a bit. Next up, we have Dagger, 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 the Rogue, with their 1d8 hit dice. We've got 9 hit points from our +1 con. So indeed, the Rogue does have 8 base hit points plus con. Your proficiencies are all here. Your light armor, simple weapon, hand crossbow, long sword, and rapier and short sword proficiencies, just like 5e. And just like 5e, dex and intelligence are your saving throws. So one thing that I don't know that is calculated or not is expertise. So in the tabletop game, you choose 2 of your skill proficiencies or 1 of your skill proficiencies and Thieves Tools, and you double your proficiency bonus. So I don't know if that is calculated in the game, but we can see all of our skills with proficiency here. Doubling that proficiency bonus, which is a +2 at level 1, would be really, really good. And what rogue wouldn't be complete without a Dagger, Dagger, Dagger sneak attack in melee or a sneak attack in ranged? Also, the level 1 rogue knows Thieves' Cant, and I didn't see language being such a big deal, but being able to speak Thieves' Cant may help out in the base game for sure. The next class is Sorcerer, not in this particular build. It's going to be interesting to see if they do a Wild Magic Sorcerer. Just the sheer number of things that can happen from a Wild Magic Sorcerer, it's going to be insane. Next up, we have the Eldritch Blast Warlock, who has 1d8 for their level, and we get our +2 from our Constitution modifier. So indeed, the Warlock has 1d8 hit dice. Just like the tabletop game, we have our light armor proficiency, simple weapons, our wisdom and charisma saving throws, and as far as skills are concerned, we get to choose 2 in the player's handbook that says it is Arcana, Deception, History, Intimidation, Investigation, Nature, and Religion, just like so you can indeed choose those 2 skills there. So there are 3 subclasses of Warlock in the 5th edition handbook. In Baldur's Gate 3, we have 2 thus far, the Great Old One and the Fiend. The Archfey is the missing one for the Warlock. We can choose 2 cantrips from the Warlock spell list. Eldritch Blast and Blade Ward are default, but we have the Chill Touch, the Friends, the Mage Hand, the Minor Illusion, the Poison Spray, and the True Strike. We also have 2 spells known, but 1 spell slot. We've got our Armor of Agathis, Arms of Hadar, Charming Person, Dissonant Whispers, Expeditious Retreat, Hellish Rebuke, Hex, Tasha's Hideous Laughter, Protection from Good and Evil, and the Witch Bolt. pretty fun spells in that list, if I do say so myself, and I do. So choosing the Fiend up here in the list, the Burning Hands and the Command spells pop up, so that is available for the Fiend subclass. And the Great Old One does indeed have Dissonant Whispers and Tasha's Hideous Laughter. And the last class you can play in the early access Baldur's Gate 3 is the Wizard, and we have our 1d6 hit dice, very spongy, our +2 from our Con 14, but indeed 1d6 for your hit dice on the Wizard. And surprisingly indeed, all weapons are accounted for here: the dagger, the dart, the sling, the quarterstaff, and the light crossbow. Intelligence and wisdom are your saving throws, and your skills: Arcana, History, Insight, Investigation, Medicine, and Religion. You can indeed choose 2, just like the tabletop game. And just like the tabletop game, you get to choose 3 cantrips of your choice. We've got Fire, Bolt, Mage Hand, and Ray of Frost, but we also have Acid Splash, Blade Ward, Chill Touch, Dancing Lights, Friends, Light, Minor Illusion, Poison Spray, True Strike, and Shocking Grasp. We, of course, have 3 first-level spell slots per rest: Mage Armor, Fog Cloud, Grease, Thunder Wave, Sleep, and Witch Bolt. We also have Burning Hands, Charm Person, Color Spray, Disguise Self, Expeditious Retreat, False Life, Feather Fall, Find Familiar, Jump, Long Strider, Magic Missile, Protection from Good and Evil, and the Ray of Sickness. So we do have our 6 slots for our spell book chosen from our first level spells, and prepared spells is your wizard level plus intelligence modifier, meaning we've got 4 for now. And lastly, the wizard does indeed have the arcane recovery action. Once per day out of combat, you get your expended spell slot. So you can recharge yourself a little bit, making the wizard last a little bit longer outside of combat. So that's what we got in the early access version. Probably the biggest change between 5th edition and Baldur's Gate 3 is the Ranger, with all of these additional cantrips and proficiencies that go with Favorite Enemy and the Natural Explorer. Everything else would translate fairly well, I think. We'll have to stay tuned to see what the Gnome and Dragonborn get into, as well as the Barbarian and the Bard and the Druid and the Sorcerer, so that should be pretty good. So I hope this allowed you to see, could you transfer a 5th edition level 1 character over into the Baldur's Gate 3 early access and vice versa? I think it would work out fairly well. But if you would like to see some gameplay or some build guides or what have you, let me know. But that will do it for me. Like, share, and subscribe if you are so bold. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you in the next video. Take care.